me being here today is pretty awesome. I didn't have a good experience in high school. About my sophomore year, I had figured out that if you go out and apply for enough jobs, you'll get them. I bagged groceries at a local grocery store. I delivered Chinese food at a Chinese restaurant. I sold cars for CarMax. I mowed lawns in the evening, and I fixed cars on the weekend. And school was not a top priority. I had money in my pocket. My car ran good. I wasn't worried at all about school. I didn't like school. I didn't want to be there. It was a super nice school. I went to Derby High School in Derby, Kansas, actually. I was a military brat. And I dreaded going to school every day. I mean, I would avoid it. I would oversleep. I would be tardy. I graduated in the bottom of my class, and I shouldn't have graduated. My senior year comes around, and Dr. Sherwood was the principal of my high school. She dragged me into her office, and she said, "Do you want to walk with your class?" And this is very close to graduation. I was like, "Well, yeah, of course. What kind of question is that?" And she says, "Well, technically you're not allowed to." She says, "You don't have enough credits." She said, "But what I'll do for you," she said, "if you start doing night school now and you do summer school, I'll let you walk with your class. And when you finish summer school, I'll give you your diploma." And I said, "Okay, deal." So I did it, worked my butt off. I had to quit most of my jobs to make it happen. Last minute, graduated with like a 1.7 from high school. It was absolutely horrible. But I did it. I pulled it off. I finished most of the required sophomore classes my senior year. And I graduated. And I was so burnt out on school. I was done. I had basically been going double time when most of my senior friends were only going every other day. And they didn't have a clue. I mean, to this day, most of my friends have no idea what I went through to pull it off and to graduate with them. And my best friend says, "Hey, we need to go on a road trip. We need to do something memorable for our senior year. We got to, do something awesome." So I'm like, "Okay." So we took my 1978 Fiat Spider that I had been working on since I was 14. My dad had bought it for me, paid $200. It sparked my love for cars. And it was almost completely restored. I mean, it just nickels and dimes the whole way, and a lot of duct tape and baling wire, and I was pretty proud of this car. So we jumped in it and had about $700 between the two of us, and we jumped in the car and we took off. We drove 6,000 miles across the West Coast. We went all the way up to Seattle, went through Yellowstone, went all the way down the West Coast. We were sleeping in the car, sleeping in tents, seeing friends and family of friends. It was pretty crazy, But what got me was every time we'd stop somewhere, every time we would see somebody, they're like, "Hey, you need to continue your education. You need to go to school. You need to, get a trade, do something. Don't just call it quits. And I'm like, what the heck? And I mean, I'm not just talking one or two people. I mean, probably 20 or 30 people in a 2-week period told me, "You need to go back to school." I just got out of school like 3 days ago. What do you mean I got to go back? I was pretty upset. I mean, it really bothered me. And I remember we're laying in the tent one night, and I'm just looking at the stars through the mosquito net, and I'm just like, maybe there's something to this. A couple of days later, we're on Hollywood Boulevard, and we'd gone through the McDonald's because about all we could afford in Hollywood, and we ordered chicken nuggets, and the lady messed up our order, and it ended up being like $30, and yet we've got like 100 chicken nuggets. So we found a homeless man sitting on the street, and we went and shared our chicken nuggets with him. And the homeless man tells me, "You really should continue your education." And I'm like, "Okay, God, I hear you loud and clear. I got it." So I'm coming back through. We're headed back up to Derby, Kansas, and we came through Oklahoma City to see my grandparents. It was our last stop before we made the 2.5-hour drive home. And Grandma and Grandpa had been picking at me all through high school, about, where you want to go to college. They sent me to college days at SNU, and, they were all, not being pushy, just always asking, and, So I was telling my grandma the story I just told you guys, that constantly I was being, told you need to go on to school, you need to continue your education. So my grandma didn't need to hear anything else. I get up the next morning, and my best friend's still with us, and she has already called about a dozen schools in the area, one of them being Metro Tech. And so after breakfast, she hands me the keys to her car and says, come on, we're going to go see a few schools. And she tells my friend, she goes, hey, Justin, you going to be all right today? He's like, yeah, I'm fine. So we spent the whole day driving around seeing different campuses, different schools, and I just dreaded it. I'm like, these are looking an awful lot like high school. More classrooms, more teachers. And what did it, we walked in Metrotech at the South Bryant campus, and I'd seen the automotive building, hadn't been inside it yet, but I'd seen it, and that was pretty cool. You know, it was one of the biggest shops I'd seen. We walk inside the main building there, and we just got one of the pamphlets off of the rack, and my grandma had called and got all the information. She was just trying to, let me see the buildings, see if I was going to be impressed. And Mrs. Teresa Francisco was walking by, just happened to be walking by, and she just stops and goes, can I help you guys? Well, my grandma immediately made a friend, and she kind of told her my story, told her I was, looking to continue my education. And I just looked at her and said, I did horrible in high school. I said, I just don't know if this is for me. And the sentence that changed my life, that got me into Metrotech, she said, high school didn't matter. She said, that's behind you, you finished it, you're here now. And she said that you've got a whole future in front of you. And it was just right there in front of her, that moment, before I'd even seen the automotive building, I decided I was going to go to school at Metrotech. Because she just told me, it didn't matter how bad you did, you can do this here now. This is a new start. And that really impressed me. And then she went further than that. She says, let me give you a tour. What are you interested in? Well, yeah, I really like working on cars, And I told her about my car, and she goes, well, I think you need to go see the Automotive Service Technology building. So we walk out there, and then I was really sold. I walked through that building, and I was, sign me up. Where do I sign? And as dumb luck would have it, I got into the ProTech program and actually got an associate's degree in it. And it wasn't easy. I struggled a lot, but I made sure I was there every day. I was on time. Obviously, I moved from Kansas. And when I graduated, I'd done the best I'd ever done in my life. It was a pretty awesome feeling. We'd worked with the professors at OSU OKC. I had worked with the teachers at Metrotech, made a lot of lifelong relationships. 15 of us started the class, and 4 of us finished. And I'm still really good friends with all 4 of those people. And those may not be great numbers, but it was a hard program. And I didn't see myself going beyond that. But when I did that, it was what else could I do? And my dad was always anti-college. Back in the 80s, he struggled to finish school. So I talked my dad into, hey, I did this. Metrotech pushed me to succeed. Why don't we go and look into this bachelor's program I hear on the radio all the time? I said, you got your GI Bill, you're retired, what's your excuse? So Dad went with me, and complaining the whole time, he's got his Air Force retirement, 20 years experience, and he doesn't need a degree, and blah, 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 and let's just try it, Dad. It's paid for you, just come try it. And so in 2012, we graduated together with our bachelor's degree. I was done. At this point, I'm about burnt out because school does not come easy to me. I try, everyone says, oh, yeah, right. No, it's honestly, to make it through, ever since I was in that program at Metrotech, I'd skip a night of sleep every week. I'd stay up all night doing homework. It was that hard. It was that difficult. It always has been. It doesn't come easy. And part of it's because I'm making up for 4 years that I slept or was late for at high school. And all the basic stuff I never got. And so college was really a struggle. We finished our bachelor's degree, and Dad loved it. Probably a lot more than I did, and it was a lot easier for him. He says, why don't we do our master's? I was like, they're crazy. I was like, I barely survived that one. And so a few months later, we're sitting in the master's program, and it was going to be a master's of science management, several months shorter than the MBA. We get about halfway through it, and about 10 different professors go, why don't you just go on and get your MBA? And I'm like, I am so horrible at math. I was like, you don't understand. I was like, just balancing the checkbook. I have to do it like 10 times to make sure I'm doing it right. Oh, you should do it. You should do it. It's only a few more classes. It's a prestigious degree. There's no way. Well, about 6 months to graduation, my dad switches. I'm like, well, dang it, there goes my study partner. So I switched, which drug out the course that much longer. But we did it. In May, I actually finished. And and I wouldn't be standing here today telling you guys that I had my MBA if it wasn't for Metro Tech. If it wasn't for walking through those doors and somebody walking by and making me feel like I was part of the family, I wouldn't be here today. And then once I finished that, my grandpa kicked me in the rear and said, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? I really don't like working for other people. I'll be honest. And I've always talked about having a shop, but I was never that serious about it. My grandpa takes me, we start going around looking at shops. And then I get a phone call from a guy that says, hey, I got a good deal on a shop, I think you need to come look at it. And we were ready to close on one across town. I said, oh, I'm not really interested. He said, just come look at it, you can tell me no, it's fine. So, now I own a business in Midwest City, and probably the most stress I've ever had in my life, but it's my stress. And I finished school, and it's awesome. And had I never stumbled through Metro Tech, I wouldn't be a business owner in the community. So I've got the Metro Tech flag hanging on my wall behind my desk, and I'm very proud of that. Thank you very much for your time.